Tashidelek and welcome to Tibet This Week, where we bring you news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's have a look at today's headlines. Central Tibetan Administration holds conference with donors, discusses partnering for progress. Tibetan Parliament members visit places in India, strengthen Tibet advocacy amongst Indians. Tibetan parliamentary delegation attends Democratic Peer Exchange Conference in Europe. Department of Information and International Relations expresses concern over China's Order Number 19. Flame of Hope, Japan condemns CCP's interference in Tibetan religious issues. Washington-based WeTag members appeal support from Congresswoman Mary Perez on US-Tibet bill. Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C. hosts Sino-Tibet Youth Interaction. India-Tibet Coordination Office revitalizes Tibet support groups in Northeast India. Core Group for Tibetan Cause, India demands G20 leaders call on China to resume dialogue with the representatives of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. On Thursday this week, the Central Tibetan Administration held a two-day conference with its donor organizations. Around 30 participants representing 20 donor organizations took part in the conference, deliberating on securing Tibet's future and partnering for progress. Sigyong Pemba Tsering, alongside the three cabinet ministers, Education Kowloon Tharlam Doma Changra, Security Kowloon Doma Gyari, Information and International Relations Kowloon Nonzu Doma, and secretaries of the Central Tibetan Administration departments with the project officers presided over the inaugural session. Sigyong presented vision paper of the 16th Kashak and highlighted the compositions and subsections of the document pertaining to the significance of why Tibet matters. He also talked about the geopolitical and socio-economic cultural significance of Tibet, to reiterate why the resolution of the Sino-Tibet conflict was important not just for Tibetans but for bringing about geopolitical stability in India and South Asian countries.
Sino-Tibet conflict, there is no other way than to reach out to the Chinese government. That's also a fact. So till such a time that we are not able to find a resolution to this Sino-Tibet conflict, our job is to reach out to the international community and tell the facts about Tibet and seek support from the international community on resolving the Sino-Tibet conflict. So this is our main responsibility, but at the same time, we have a democratic system here, and the democratic system also takes a lot of time to manage it. So during the last 2 years, we spent a lot of time in developing a system, which I will talk about later here. So this is our first main responsibility, to resolve the Sino-Tibet conflict, and this is our position right now. So we do have back channels with the Chinese government, but there's nothing concrete as yet. That's as much I can talk to you about the Sino-Tibet conflict right now, or the negotiation or building contacts. So our second responsibility is where you all come in, the welfare of Tibetans in exile. So in this case, we will have several subheadings as to how we intend to move forward. And then, of course, we have been spending a lot of time on enhancing CTA's, Central Tibetan Administration's administrative efficiency and capacity, where USAID is playing a very important role in helping us identify, research, and come out with recommendations as to how we need to move forward.
Through this conference, the Central Tibetan Administration aims to build strong partnerships and strategies for collective efforts to empower the Tibetan movement. This is the second donor conference convened by the Central Tibetan Administration. The first meeting was held during the 12th Cabinet under the executive leadership of the Kowloon Tripa, Professor Sangdong Rinpoche, in 2005. The members of the Tibetan Parliament in exile continue to visit places in India, meet with Indian dignitaries, visit educational institutions including colleges and universities, interact with faculties and students, and meet with the media personnel in Indian states of Odisha, West Bengal, Sikkim, Gujarat, Rajasthan and Jammu and Kashmir to create awareness on the present situation inside Tibet, including human rights situation, environmental condition, status of religious freedom and the rights to self-determination, and the significance of support from the Indians and the Indian government in the struggle for freedom in Tibet. The delegation of the Tibetan Parliament in exile, consisting of parliamentarians Geshe Ngaba Kangri and Dr. Rinzin Luntup, took part in the Global Democratic Peer Exchange Conference from 19 to 22nd August in Europe. The Tibetan delegation had the opportunity to highlight Tibet's pressing issues such as human rights violations, mass DNA collection drive, colonial boarding schools, and spoke on the historical background of Tibet, its current status, and the evolution of democracy in exile, especially on the establishment of the Tibetan Parliament in exile and its functioning. Attended by prominent leaders and representatives from 9 different countries from across the world, the conference provided an opportunity for different parties to distinct backgrounds from various countries and cultures to exchange experiences and perspectives on numerous common issues, including challenges and opportunities in a democracy. The Department of Information and International Relations, Central Tibetan Administrations, expressed concern over the new Chinese regulation which is set to go into effect on 1st September 2023 that will intensify restrictions on religious freedom inside Tibet and elsewhere in China. China's State Administration for Religious Affairs promulgated the Measures for the Administration of Religious Activity Sites, or the Order Number 19, marking a significant escalation in the People's Republic of China government's ongoing crackdown on religious freedom. DIR in the statement stated about the legislative prosecution and sinicization of Tibetan Buddhism as a coercive measures that are intended to maximize the PRC government's control over Tibetan Buddhism culture and political affairs. In the light of the deteriorating situation in Tibet, the Department of Information and International Relations urged the international community to strengthen the collective power and impact of their partners and allies in addressing the unlawful and tight control that the PRC government has over religious practices and teachings in Tibet, which is being enforced solely by China to maintain its authority in Tibet. Flame of Hope, a Japanese NGO dedicated to promoting world peace, issued a statement condemning the Chinese Communist Party leadership for their continued interference in Tibetan religious affairs, especially in selections of Panchen Lama and other high Tibetan Lamas. It urged China to stop violations of human rights and religious freedom in Tibet. Representative Dr. Arya thanked the visiting delegates for their sincere concern and support for the Tibet issue and updated them on the situation in Tibet and Tibetans in exile. Reverend Rokyo Endo, president of the Flame of Hope International Committee and MPO Earth Caravan, and Ms. Ami Nara, chairperson of the Tokyo office, visited the liaison office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and handed the statement to Representative Dr. Arya Tsawagebo on Thursday this week. The members of Washington State Voluntary Tibet Advocacy Group (WTAG) on 17 August virtually met with Catherine Gillespie, the staffer of Representative Mary Gulsenkamp Perez, and appealed for support from Congresswoman Mary Perez for the China-Tibet Conflict Act of 2023, which is also called HR 533. The major component of the bill is strengthening the authority of the U.S. Special Coordinator, enabling them to advocate vigorously for the participation of the Chinese government in negotiations alongside the Central Tibetan Administration. The Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C., in collaboration with the Democracy Salon, a Chinese youth initiative in New York, hosted a film discussion as part of Sino-Tibet Youth Interaction event at the Tibet House on Saturday last week, in attendance of around 50 youths from Tibetan community and Chinese community in New York and nearby areas. The participants watched a screening of Tharlo, a film directed by renowned Tibetan filmmaker late Pema Chiden. Office of Tibet's Chinese Liaison Officer Tsuldum Gyatso gave a brief update on Tibet's current situation and expressed appreciation towards the participants for attending the Sino-Tibet Youth Interaction. As part of its efforts to strengthen and revitalize Tibet support groups in Sikkim and North Bengal, the India-Tibet Coordination Office and the Himalayan Committee for Action on Tibet organized a Tibet support group meeting at the Himalayan Buddhist Cultural School in Salugara, West Bengal on Monday this week. Thupten Rinzing, ITCO coordinator, stated that the Himalayan people have an additional responsibility to support Tibetan cause because of the historical relationship and affinity shared with Tibet. Chief guest Shri Surendra Kumar stressed the importance of raising awareness, urging the inclusion of Tibet in political party manifestos and support for Tibet-friendly candidates. The event was graced by Chief guest Shri Surendra Kumar, National Co-Convener for the Core Group for Tibetan Cause, India, and special guest Shri Somyadeep Datta, Regional Convener for CGTC, among others. The attendees included representatives from non-governmental organizations, local residents, and senior students from the school. On Thursday last week, the Core Group for Tibetan Cause India held a press conference at the Press Club of India in New Delhi and called on G20 leaders to pressurize Chinese government to resume dialogue with the representatives of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The conference featured addresses by CGTC National Convener Sri R.K. Krime, National Co-Convener Shri Surendra Kumar, and Shri Arvind Nikose, along with Regional Convener Shri Pankaj Goyal. The Core Group for Tibetan Cause India is the apex body of all the Tibet support groups in India. It is the umbrella organization of the Indians supporting Tibetan cause in the country, with the task of coordinating, directing, planning, and initiating activities in support of the Tibet cause. That is all the news for this week's edition of Tibet This Week. Thank you for watching Tibet TV.